When I was 9 years old, I found out that my mother was the mistress to a man who was married and also happened to be the pastor of the church that we were attending.
We back, and today is my anniversary, y'all. Yup, 12 years, baby. And look what I got. Yes, ma'am. And we gonna get into the reaction video today. Straight into it, because baby, it's just tea over here. Let's get started.
So today is the day that I have decided I am releasing a lot of family secrets, because those family secrets is actually family trauma. And I will no longer be quiet about it. I am on my healing journey. There was a time I thought I was already on my healing journey, and I was not. I just moved locations. But today's the day that I break some curses that is over my family. And I am doing this because I've had many signs, the past few weeks telling me that this is what I need to do and urging me to do it. And many of my reasons is because, one, I'm a mom now myself. And, like I said, I'm going through this healing journey, and I've been kind of researching and reading up on some things that will help me heal. And one of the things I came across was that one of the best ways to break a generational curse and to work through generational trauma is to speak. Yes, it's to open your throat chakra, and it's to speak on all of the things that, created a lot of trauma in your life. And, I want the best for my son mentally, physically, financially, all of the things. And so I'm going to start with releasing some things now. Second, there will be many little girls and women who I believe my story will help, past, present, and future. I believe it will help women to see the type of things that they are in and see how their traumas that they, don't really speak on affects their everyday life. Even when they think it no longer does, it does. And also, I'm vindicating myself. I've had a lot of people treat me the worst kind of ways, and I've had to fight to prove my innocence in things. I've had to fight to prove that it's not me, it's them. I've had to, pull myself up each and every time. I've had to fight a lot of battles alone because no one cared. No one even cared to listen. So with all of that being said, when I was 9 years old, I found out that my mother was the mistress to a man who was married and also happened to be the pastor of the church that we were attending. And for many years, I had to go to that church and sit there and hold that secret. It was a secret that no child should hold for anybody. And of course, my trauma didn't begin there. It started way earlier.
Crazy word.
So as I was saying, that my trauma started even before the age of 9. When I was about 4 years old, I remember my auntie's father of her kids, he broke into our home, and I watched him assault my mother and my auntie. My grandfather, he was a crackhead, he was a junkie, and he stole the heater out of her home. And so for a couple of nights we shivered in the cold. my mother as she was trying her hardest with me, because the thing is, before I really get into what my mom and everything did, my mother, she saw the environment that she brought me into, and she did have high hopes for herself and for me, and so she moved us away. That is how she ended up meeting the pastor. But she moved us away from that environment, so she did have high hopes, and she did want to change the outcome of my life. She just didn't get very far. And so I want to say that, because a large part of my story, my mother will be the villain, but she wasn't always. And so, as I was saying, when she set out to move and give us better life, she had to work. And one of the times that she had to go work, she, took me to someone's house that was babysitting me. And that lady had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and they were 14. And they decided to pretty much have their way with me and experiment with me sexually when I was 8 years old. And then the following year, we joined a church. And not too long after that, I found out that she was sleeping with the pastor. And the way that I found out was because it was the middle of the night, and we were already staying in an apartment that was very sketchy, very ghetto. And, my mother was a beautiful lady, and she still is. But quite often she got catcalled at, and so it was already a scary place, and I felt I had to protect my mother. And one night I was in my room sleeping, and I got up in the middle of the night to go in the bed with her, and when I go in her room, she's not there. It's the middle of the night and she's not there. And of course I panicked, of course I'm scared, and I look out the window and her car is there, but she's not. And so still, 9 years old, I am terrified. And so I'm just kind of standing there in the window and I'm crying. And I stayed all the way up until the next morning. And as I'm looking out the window, I see a Lexus pull up, and that Lexus drops my mom off. Now, this is the same Lexus that is parked in the pastor's parking spot when we go to church on Sunday. And she came around.
Okay, now so far that was a bit too much for her to take in at 4, 6, and then now at this point they causing her to not only trust what her mother does, but trust a pastor, believe in what people say. So they're creating doubt in this young child's mind, because they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing at all. And not only does the pastor know, but the mama knows. So she played a role in that, and her daughter is seeing all of this. Jesus, that's just too much.
And before I continue with my story, let me go ahead and say this. If you come across my story and you feel the need to comment and go see a therapist, just don't, and keep scrolling. I'm sorry I'm not stupid and dumb. I'm sorry. Because if I don't trust pastors anymore, what makes you think I'm going to trust a therapist? Because if you think about it, they're on 2 sides of the same coin. They're both going to exploit you for their help. Go ahead and get therapy and then lose your job and you can't pay that therapist. I bet you they turn their back on you. Go to a church and tell that pastor you need prayer because you're going through some financial situations. I bet he tell you to make sure you give all the rest of your money that you have in offering before you go. Okay. And if you see me, saying it all and you get triggered by that, 9 times out of 10, you're a person who has an image, but behind closed doors, you a sneaky, weird motherfucker. So it triggers you. Because see, the thing about me is that I done been to jail, I done drugs. So that means there's somebody out here that probably got some stories about me. And who am I to tell them not to tell it? I did it. I was there. Why would I tell them not to tell it? So the problem is, a lot of people, they do stuff and they don't want to take accountability. They don't want to face it. They don't want to apologize. You come to me and tell me that I did something, I'm going to apologize. Because I may have done something to you to hurt you unintentionally. Never intentionally. But hey, if you feel like I did either or, come talk to me about it.
or tell somebody else about it. And if I feel like the story didn't go that way, or I should be able to tell my story, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell my side anyway. You talk about not going to therapy, when the lesson really should be, if you do something weird to somebody, if you put yourself in a position to do messed up stuff to other people, you should be prepared for somebody to tell on you.
So she came running up the stairs, and it was, obvious that her trick at the time was, hoping that I would stay asleep through the night and she would be back to get me ready for school in the morning. But again, I found out. And before I go further into that, I want to talk about my father and who my father was. So my father, he committed a murder when I was barely 1 year old, and he ended up doing time for it, about 25 years to life. Now, because he was not in the home directly, like obviously his absence had an effect on me, but he wasn't a direct issue for me. So I think his story is his story to tell. I don't quite know everything that, really transpired with his case. But then my grandfather, he also went to jail for a murder. Now, I don't know if he was the one that pulled the trigger, but a cop did die after him and his two other accomplices after they robbed a bank in Jamestown, North Carolina. Now, that story, his name is Frankie Squire. So that story you can actually look up, and you can look up Faye Brown, because she was one of the accomplices, and she's the one that's actually giving her side of the story on everything. But it was actually on the ID channel or the Discovery Channel, something like that. So this is a true story. All of these things that I'm telling you did happen. And I've just been very, very quiet about it, but I've realized I have a very powerful story. I have a very, very powerful story, and I just want to share it. And so for me, it seems like, I've had this kind of curse over my family since the day I was born. And so, I want to share how that manifests and how that continues to go through generation after generation. I'm trying to break it completely. So anyway, back to my mother. And so she came running home, and again, like I said, I saw the car. It was a Lexus, and it was the same car that the pastor drives on Sunday. And of course, I began to question her about it, and immediately she would deny. I don't think people understand that when people ask you something like that, it's because they already know. And so me as a little girl, is me already knowing, and you're denying, it totally rewired my brain right there. It truly rewired my brain. And I know that probably from her standpoint, she felt like, well, you're a child, you shouldn't know. But I already know now. And so one of the things that would happen was that I would have to sit in the pulpit, and I knew this secret, and it broke me down, because I thought about the wife, I thought about his kids, I thought about, what would actually happen to me if this secret really did got out, because I was...
You know what's crazy to me is that the child is more worried about what would happen than the people that is actually grown in doing the situation. Like, this child is thinking about the outcome, the consequences, the embarrassment, but the mother that knows she's definitely wrong, and the pastor that should take fully blame also does not. That is crazy. And unfortunately, it caused her to carry the weight, it so to speak. Like, why should a child carry a weight and also a secret that should not be done in the first place?
I was really close friends with his niece by marriage. So imagine, me still having to meet up and still play like I don't know anything and be in their family's face. That was a thing. And it took me a while to realize that eventually everybody kind of knew, and the wife knew. So she would do things like she would invite me out to take me shopping. There was a time we went on like a beach trip, and I went with them. It was only me, my mother didn't go. And I went, and there were like these beds in the room, and she was adamant about me getting a bed.
Girl, You was brave enough to let your daughter, you was brave enough to allow your daughter to go on these trips with the first lady, knowing that you are doing something you shouldn't be doing in the first place. Like, that is crazy to me. That's like a whole slap in the face.
In bed. So she shows special attention to me more than, any normal first lady probably would to one of the members' daughters of her church. And that's when I realized that, she did know. And then the thing that really drove this wedge between me and my mother is that I was angry about this thing. It got to a point where I would try to talk to her about it, and she didn't want to hear me talk to her about it. So I was like sliding notes under her door. Just please listen to me. I just want you to stop, Mom. We can, if it's about money, I don't care if we're broke. We can not have, I don't mind suffering a little bit. Just get yourself together and make sure you can take care of yourself by yourself, and you don't need the money that he may provide for you. I was bribed with gifts and things, and what a lot of people don't know is that for the main part of why I ended up dropping out of college, because I was scared to leave her home back home with him. I was terrified because I felt like, for the most part though, I kind of bridged the gap between how much he would try to come over to the house, because in the type of text that they were saying, it was like,
at the end of the day, it was not forced, it was a choice. So for you to think that it's your job to protect your mother, to keep her safe, she was still going back. She was still allowing this stuff to happen. And I don't agree that children should be carrying the weight for their parents. Like, I wholeheartedly don't agree. Some of that stuff should have not been even brought to you or shown to you, and it should have never fucking happened. Like, but to bury the weight and thinking like, oh, like, I gotta make sure my mother's good, instead of your mother making sure you good and your mental state is fine, like, you taking on her role.
It was like, Mahogany's home right now and stuff like that. So me actually being there, because I've always been a bit, vocal about stuff. Me actually being there was, saving her. And she ended up having like this mental breakdown a bit too when I went to college. And so I dropped out. I was like, I gotta take care of my mom. And so I wasn't even able to pursue that at the time that I should have been able to pursue it. And during the childhood, we would get into it about it, and I would be, you're homework, because I would get mad at her about it. I would begin to break her things because I wanted attention. I wouldn't get the attention. She had to kind of sneak out in the middle of the night. So once she would sneak out and come in the morning, she had to go to work. And when she got home, she just wanted to sleep. So I didn't get help with my homework. I wasn't able to talk to her about my day. Barely did she cook anything. And so that began to make me angry, and I began to ruin things in the house, especially the things that I felt like he bought her. And when people would come over and they would see these holes in the walls, because she couldn't tell them the true story, I was just looked at as this angry.
So basically she's saying she acted out based on her mother.
I was looked at as this angry, troubled child that can't be helped. And you can imagine how that looked for me and what that did for me. Nobody really wanted to deal with me. Everybody thought I was a problem. Everybody knew the road that I would go down, and it was like, but do you not see, why this is happening? And even when it came to family and stuff, we ended up homeless because she ended up getting mentally scrambled up, I'll say it like that. And so she ended up quitting her job. This is right after I went to college. So I know that me going to college kind of totally took her, and so I literally...
No, I felt like your mother was fighting her own demons, but since you already knew stuff that should not have been done anyway around you, or you should have been allowed to know and see, also, like, had you thinking like, oh my God, this is because I went to school. But technically, your mother probably had a mental breakdown, like something that she probably would have done without you going to school. So, God, like, basically you was carrying the full weight on your back.
And so I literally at the time she was all I had. And so for something to be going on with my mother and me not being able to do anything about it, I ended up getting angry at that too. So I called her sister, I called my grandmother. I'm like, y'all come get her, because I don't know what to do. There's nothing that I can do. I'm 18, I don't have a car. I'm walking back and forth to Wendy's, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay this $900 mortgage for her so that when she gets her certificate, she'll have a home to come back to. But I couldn't do it. And I think that's the first time I truly felt like the biggest failure. The biggest failure. And at the time I had a boyfriend and we were going to move in together, but then I realized, well, my mom's gone back home to her hometown and I'm up here with a boy that's out of high school, and if he started beating on me, what I'm gonna do? And so I ended up following her back home. And because it was now both of us in family members' house, I felt like I was a bit too much being there. And so I ended up going to stay with a cousin of mine. And from there, I ended up doing coke and ended up going to jail. And so that was like my first wake-up call to like, what are you getting yourself into? And so I didn't do any of those things anymore. And from there, with getting arrested at that moment, I had a sister. So I have two sisters on my father's side. I won't get into anything, too far with either one of them. But I chose to go and stay with one because once she got word that I was in jail, she and her mother came and got me out. And so I ended up going over to her house in the projects, and I stayed over there. And there was a man named Willie Carl, and he was a crackhead. Now, at this time, I had no idea truly what a crackhead was. All the ones that I've seen on TV, were like slumped over and, in these certain environments. And he was somebody, I guess you would call a high functioning drug addict. And so he didn't come across to me as anyone that I should be afraid of. And at the time, the sister that I was, staying with, he pretty much told her, because she was doing a bit of some substances, and he pretty much told her that he would give her the substance only through me. So only if I went over there to get it from him to bring back to her will she get it. And at that time the drugs had her brain so fried, because I want to say that she eventually apologized to me for everything, and she was just as lost as anybody could be lost. That's it. She had her own story to tell. And still though, she wanted those drugs, so she sent me over there. And me being not really, this was also me getting to know her and things like that, I kind of didn't have no issues with going over there. I kind of knew the game as well at that moment, because I had now been over there for a while, and I was observing, I was seeing a lot of things that was happening in front of me. And it was one of those, nothing's gonna happen to you, he just gonna talk to you, so I went over there and I would talk to him. And that's exactly what happened. And I was such a naive sweetheart that I would tell him things like, you could stop doing crack today. And he would show me pictures of who he was before the drugs took over. And I said, that looks like somebody that you want to be again. And he had kids, and I was like, you can go back and be in those kids' lives. Just naive and whatever. And at the time we were smoking weed, and he ended up lacing the blunt, and he put crack in the blunt, and I hit it, and I liked it a lot. And so from there, for about 8 months, I was addicted to crack.
That shit pissed me off. I can't stand a motherfucker that will literally lay something let somebody try it all because they on that shit. Like, everybody don't do the same thing you do. Why would you lace something that you know damn well this girl never had? Why? Like, why do people do that? Why do people force up like addictions like that on other people? That is crazy.
And I remember, nights that I would just kind of cry about it, and I would say, I'm gonna get out of this. And I want to say what actually truly motivated me to begin speaking out on my own situation. And it was this woman, she got on Oprah and she talked about how she had to go no contact with her son, who was threatening her and being very disrespectful towards her. And what she said about him was true. It was absolutely 100% true. But the thing is, she didn't get up there and truly tell what she put that child through, what that child had to experience because he was born to her in her situation. She did not talk about that. She started off first wanting to talk about how much of a horrible, son he became towards her, and like I said, I know that's true on both sides, though. You know what I'm saying? Because when it happened to me, like I said, once the crying and the begging and the pleading for her to stop didn't work, I began to get angry at her. And I began to punish her. I absolutely did. And the thing is, there was a time I was about to tell my little cousin, what was happening. And she overheard me about to tell her. And she came in there and whooped my motherfucking ass to shut me up. She did not turn me loose. She tore my ass up for real. And so she actually ended up being the one who even taught me that level of aggression. So when I would get into it with her, I would put my hands on her. I never threatened my mother, though, but I did absolutely put my hands on her, and that could have taken her out as well. But I'm actually really bigger than my mom as well. So there was a level of restraint that I would still have. But again, they talk about how the child is and how angry the child is. Let me tell you something. If you see a child that is angry, the parents are to blame. The parents. And a lot of times the parents can't really control certain things, like that mother. When she began to speak about what happened, their father was abusive and she was going through this abuse and everything like that. So these men, they will put on a mask to get women or to seem like a safe space, like the pastor. And then they begin to do the most horrible things and they try to control these women, right? And the thing is, though, when you get out of that situation, you owe it to your child to be with them, to be present, to get them the help that they need. If they need that help, you owe it to them. And what she did was she jumped right into another relationship with a man and acted like nothing even happened. That son was still hurting. Now, on the flip side of that, though, at a certain age, you do need to learn or figure out how to release those things. Because although I was angry with my mother, there came a point where I was like, you can't keep punishing this woman. Because now who are you? You're letting all that anger and all of that type of things, overtake you. And now you're the villain. You got to release that type of thing because now, who are you now?
Hurt people. Let's just say that. And yeah, nobody's perfect at all. And that's why a lot of times they say, get your shit together before bringing in children, because things that your children see, witness, and experience will be their trauma, and the trauma will be because of you. So basically, her mother's hurt, pain, and trauma and bad decisions trickle down to her being hurt and taking it all out on her mother. Like, it's just a wheel, like a generational curse / cycle that happens.
And again, I want to address the, you should go to therapy comments that kind of keep coming up here and there. Here's the thing. Of course, I definitely don't have a level of trust in anybody. Let me tell you why. Because I trust myself. Okay? Bar, bitch. I trust myself. So I don't need to trust anyone else. Also, this is my platform. And I get to choose whatever I would like to do with my platform. Okay? Also, it is a psychological thing. So let me break it down to you. So the pastor, he was not some country bumpkin pastor with about 5 members in his church. This man had true connections and true power. Okay, and I'll get to who he is. I'll reveal him. But he had connections to pastors like Jamal Bryant. He had connections to pastors like Prophet Karn. And he had, there's this one pastor, real old and his neck don't move. I can't remember his name right now, but he was still a powerful man. And with that being said, there was a situation where I got into a little tussle, a little fight, when I was in school. And this was part of the bribing as well. But he was a man who knew lawyers and judges, because y'all have to understand, a lot of the lawyers and judges, they go to church, okay? They go to these churches. And so a lot of the times, judges will use pastors to talk to their congregation to get the congregation to vote in those judges in that town. Okay, so I had that situation happen, and the judge who was over my case was one of the judges that our church helped get elected into her seat. And the lawyer who also got me off of that case, he knew her from a church that he preached at and stuff. Okay, so me as a child, you have to understand that if I went to therapy 9 out of 10, it would have been a therapist that he knew. Okay, which means that anything that I would have told that therapist would have went back and told him. So then they would have got a inside scoop of what my psych was, and then they would have been able to better hide what they were doing. Okay, and I don't think y'all also understand that therapists, yes, they have this kind of contract, but they're not supposed to, tell anything that you tell them, but they still do. And how it starts is they'll go and they'll tell their colleagues. So after you leave your therapy session, they'll go and talk to their colleagues about you. And then their colleagues will go and talk to their family members, in their home about you. And then that family member will go and say some other stuff. So your little story that you think ain't getting out, your privacy that you think isn't getting out, it is. And you just don't know about it. It's not true. Okay, and they may not necessarily put a name to it, but every time you walk into that office, they know it's you. So a lot of things that y'all think is private out here is not private. And that's why if you're gonna...
So basically, they're like a best friend that learned everything about you, but technically was really like sneaky and telling everybody your fucking business, and you realize that she wasn't your best friend in the first fucking place. Basically, that's what she's saying. Like, the motherfuckers tell you they can't tell, but everybody and your mama gonna know.
And that's why if you're gonna really do some dirt, you need to do it by yourself.
I don't know about that. Don't do it at all.
Back to my story. So at this point, I'm on crack now. And of course, people treated me even worse than they treated me before. And this is why I'm telling my story, because I need y'all to understand that person that you see strung out on drugs, that person that you see, hopping and bopping and being wild and everything like that, especially at a certain age, that is a person who was somebody's baby, who people ignored, who people left out in the cold, who people abandoned, who people turned their backs on. Okay, where something happened to them and there was nobody around that they could go to about it. That is what that person is. Okay, and not when they dibble and dabble. No, when they are strong out. That means the pain that they carry is so bad that because they can't even take themselves out, they're hoping that those drugs take them up out of here. And that is where I was at. Nobody cared. Nobody listened. You know what I'm saying? And as I'm telling the story, word already got out to my mother that I'm talking about her. And that's fine, because I don't expect to talk about anybody and, it don't get back to them. That's how that works. But the thing that's bothering me is that I know that the same people that are running to quickly tell her what I'm talking about were the people in my family that were slow. Matter of fact, didn't even help at all when I'm out here on the fucking streets doing crack by myself, looking for love in all the places that I couldn't get from my family. And what, I guess y'all thought I deserved that? Because I was angry and my mom played it smart and came off as innocent and sweet.
No, you definitely didn't deserve that. But at the same time, like, you didn't have a choice. Somebody put this in your weed. Like, you didn't have a choice. And I feel like people nowadays, well, any other time, Like, when they're around somebody with a serious addiction, they are afraid themselves. Like, you can tell a person to stop doing something and try to support them as much as possible, but in the process, you having to watch your back, watch your home, make sure nothing don't get taken from you, make sure nothing don't get broken, making sure this person ain't stealing to help their habits. Like, I have seen and witnessed a lot of times people that's on these type of addictions, like, really don't want nobody's help. And the people that help them, they don't help them in the way that they want them to help them. And now they're going around like telling everybody they was never helped. You get what I'm saying? So it's hard for people to trust the fact that, okay, I'm gonna help this person, I'm gonna love on this person, I'm gonna encourage this person, only for that person to choose their addiction every time. Not saying that this is you, but on the other foot, people are scared as fuck. They're scared that they're gonna let this person in their home and that person gonna wipe them clean, take every fucking thing just to support their addiction, or do something to harm them once they say no. So I can see both perspectives. Yeah, a lot of them are suppressing something really deep, something that hurt them, something that was their experience and nobody else's. And some of them don't want the help. Some of them are out here to supply their addiction, meanwhile hurting family. So some people stay away from it. And it's sad, but it's true.
So y'all gathered around her to help her out, but fuck me. You know, I'm considered demonic and a problem, and the whole time I'm hurting. I'm just angry about it. You know, and my mom come up here one time and she's like, oh, you making a lot of money. You could have went on that family trip with us. Why would I go any fucking where somebody don't like me? Them people don't like me. They showed me that when I was out here by myself and nobody came to check up on me. Nobody came to pray with me. Nobody came to do anything. And when I did come over and I had an emotional outburst, motherfuckers kicked me back right on the streets. So why would I show up for anybody as my best self? Because I had to work on myself, for myself, by myself. And I'm supposed to show up and take some pictures or something? It don't work like that. Then on top of that, my mother abandoned me. She abandoned me when it was time for me to go to college. And then I still dropped out to kind of come back and help her. And now I watch her help everybody else and be there for everybody. So I'm about to wrap this up. But recently my mom had moved up here and it was supposed to be this kind of exchange. You know, we had spent about 7 years apart because it got to the point where I did not like her. And, you know, it was because she did not like me. And so I guess we set out to kind of try our relationship again and, you know, mend some things and start anew.
I think y'all didn't like each other's ways. I don't think it was like, oh, I didn't like her, she didn't like me. I think y'all didn't like each other's ways, and to that y'all crashed based on the stuff that you seen her do that was horrible, that wasn't called for, that she could have prevented, and then you lashing out, fighting her angrily, and then like basically like you said, punishing her. So I don't think it was like y'all not liking each other. I think y'all don't like each other's ways, and like that's crazy.
And started anew. But it wasn't until she came up here that I realized that all of, if not majority of my abandonment issues and my trust issues and things like that literally stemmed from that situation. And her coming up here kind of sent me more into a spiral. And now I'm like, I don't even know what to trust or who to trust and stuff like that. And because also for me experiencing that situation, it was like this pastor, he has everything. He has a beautiful church, he has members that follow him, he has a beautiful family, a beautiful wife, and that wasn't enough, you know. And you know, here I am building the foundation with my husband, but when will I maybe not be enough? And I know that these things happen and people just kind of fall out of love and stuff like that as well. But I love hard. I really do. If I am in love and stuff like that. And it has always been in the back of my mind that I need to always have a, if a nigga cheat, leave plan always brewing. But, it began to be the point where I became a problem in my own marriage because, he breathed wrong and I'm like, oh shit, he finna fucking cheat. He finna do me in. He finna do it to me. I gotta go ahead and leave, and that caused a wedge and stuff in our relationship. And so my mom moved up here because I'm also trying to give her the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to not trust my own mother around my husband or whatever. But then when people show you who they are the first time, believe them. So there was a situation that happened, where she told me something that he did, and then I go to him about it, and of course he's like, I'm about to go to the source, and you got to bring it to my mother, and I stopped the conversation because I'm like, what we're not going to do is bring my mother into our situation. That's not how it works like that. And before I used to be the type of person that told everybody everything, and then I had to learn shut the fuck up about my marriage. But when that happened, I shut the conversation down, and
why not go to the source? If she's saying this, why not confront her with both of y'all there? Like, it would make more sense.
Conversation down, and I leave out of the house. My husband tells me, because we tell each other everything, he tells me that my mama then looked at him and whispered, I'll talk to you later. So she had planned to talk to him behind my back about the situation after I told them, let's not do that. She took it upon herself to say, I'll talk to you later. And that is what she has done to me my entire life. She would go behind my back and say these things about me, even though I'm literally here to help heal her as her daughter and love her. And she allowed other people to look at me as crazy and everything like that because I was trying to stand up for certain shit that was just fucked up and wrong. And in conclusion, I just want to say that the choices that we make each and every time we make these choices, they affect our kids profoundly. Okay, they truly can break our kids down and create problems for generations to come. And if nobody heals from it, if nobody speaks up, if nobody says, hey, that's wrong, that's not right, and the people that are doing wrong don't say, damn, yeah, I'm fucking wrong, let me fix this situation, it will be a whole fucking problem again for generations to come. Okay, so and to me, it's like me and my mother, we actually could have gotten together and we could have went around, trying to heal a whole bunch of mother-daughter dynamics that, had been broken just by telling our story and how we overcame, But, I guess that's something that's just not going to happen. So you do have to be prepared sometimes to go no contact with your family members, your mom, and all those type of things like that. Because what I also noticed that I was trying to give to my mother for exchange for her acceptance of me. And it was never going to happen. It got to a point where she would try to send affirmations and tell me that I was beautiful and stuff like that later on. But it was like, I needed to hear that at 14. 14-year-old me, craved that. And I was getting to the point of where I was wanting to unalive myself and stuff like that. And nobody cared. They were just ready to send me on to, a grippy sock, vacation. And that was kind of the plan too, to shut me up. And so people really do not care about you. People do not care about your lives, even if they gave birth to you. So it is a choice. It is a choice that we all make, whether we actually truly love our kids the way we're supposed to love them or if we don't. And you as that child, you know what I'm saying? Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for going through the motions of that, because you did not ask to be in this world. Someone laid down and had sex and then here you are, So you don't ever feel bad, and don't let anybody else make you feel bad for speaking your truth and talking about what happened, And my family may look at this and get upset, still missing the point, and that's okay. Maybe it's not meant for nobody to get it in this lifetime. That's okay. But I feel free as a motherfucking bird. You know what I'm saying? Free as fuck. Because when I'm quiet, my heart hurt. And ain't nobody gonna check for me about it. So I'm gonna say what I want to say when I need to say it and how I want to fucking say it. You know what I'm saying? And it's because that I actually truly feel like I'm in a safe space thanks to my husband. Because he also brought me in with my fucked up self and decided to love me anyway, So I'm still thankful. But really think about the things that you're putting your kids in, man. Even for me, there's days that, I know I'm doing a lot and I still don't feel like I'm doing enough because I need to make sure my son feels love. I have a little...
In my opinion, I don't think that they was trying to put her in a place to get her help to shut it up. I think it was more like because she was acting out. This was really bothering her, and at the end of the day, they didn't know how to take it. They didn't know how to fix it. It was already done. Whatever was done was done. So they were just trying to get her to help, because that situation, as well as other situations, but she talking about that situation, that played a major part in every decision after that she made. And I do think that she was young as hell to see that caused her to go into that reflection of not only not trusting like pastors, counselors, but her mother, because her mother was part of the problem. But at the end of the day, like, you have to grow, you have to live and you learn. The choice of her getting on crack, it wasn't her choice. Like, somebody laced her stuff, but she felt like that it just gave her this type of high or feeling to bury everything that she's been going through, which that wasn't the way either. Because if you don't trust enough for a counselor because you think they're gonna be in your business, imagine how many people gonna be in your business, you walking around town trying to steal stuff, lashing out, being angry, going to jail, like getting yourself involved in certain things, and your family finds out and you don't think that they're going to talk about it. They definitely will. No matter what got you to that point, they definitely will. A lot of times family members do want to help, they do want to give you the resources, but at the same time you got to look at it like, would you allow a crackhead in your house? Would you allow a crackhead to come over and then they have this hissy fit or act out or be angry and aggressive? Like, nowadays, like, those people that are angry and have these addictions wind up killing their whole family, or wind up killing the people that is actually helping them, or wind up stealing from their family members and taking advantage of them, keep saying that they need the help and the resources only to get what they can get at the time to support their habits. So no, I don't think people was trying to be evil and cruel and mean and not help you, and they just didn't care and love you. They were also put in a position where they was kind of scared themselves. Like, I don't know what end of this person I'm going to get today. Period. But your hurt is irrelevant, and you should one day sit down with your mother and tell her what really broke you down. Literally tell her. Like, she had you going to church looking embarrassed. She had you going with the first lady looking silly. Like, tell her what she done, because I'm pretty sure she knew that she was doing some unnecessary bullshit, but at the end of the day she just kept doing it, which trickled down and caused an effect on you, and now that's where you are today. Not like, who want to be in a situation where they don't even not only trust the world but don't trust their mama? Like, that is crazy. So y'all, drop down in the comment section and tell me what you think about this story. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you are new here and reached to the end, subscribe to this channel. And you guys, I hope you all have a blessed day. Peace.